What's really pop locking? Got started a little bit late today. My dog was acting like he had some things to do. And then he wouldn't do them when I tried to bring him outside. So try back a little bit later. But yeah, we back. So this is how we're going to get down with this. All right. As you guys see on the screen here, this is the 79-page document. I guess this is all the arguments in regards to Bill Cosby getting released here. And I wanted to hit this particular thing from the angle of some information or something that we can kind of look up and check out. Now, I might do a part 2 because of course, we're not going to go through all 79 pages. I'm going to kind of read some things in the beginning, maybe skim through a little bit and then read through a little bit more and then call it an evening. And then maybe we'll get back on it on maybe Thursday and maybe finish that on a Thursday or try to add on to it, man. But I wanted to hit this from a different angle as opposed to just giving my thoughts about the situation. A lot of people have done that. There's been some people, I think there's been some attorneys that spoke on it. I don't know if any of the attorneys read all 79 pages, but what I've been hearing is that a lot of attorneys were saying that they knew something wasn't right from the jump. And the question I have is, if you knew something wasn't right from the jump, why didn't anybody try to reach out? I don't know if they did or didn't, but I haven't heard anybody saying they tried to reach out and tell Bill Cosby's crew or camp about the situation. Or maybe they already, maybe Bill Cosby's crew already knew that and just was saying, well, hey, take this hit for a few months or a year or whatever, how long he was in jail, and we'll get you out. And but either way, that would be kind of foul. But then again, I don't know if Bill Cosby's crew already tried to push on this issue from the beginning and just was getting a lot of people trying to push back or trying to hold them up is a better word. So don't know if that situation went down that way. I understand Bill Cosby gave an interview, I think an official interview, but maybe I'll check that out. And then if I do that part 2, I can get some more context myself based on what he may have or may say in an interview. Like I said, I think there's an interview out there with him, after getting out of jail, talking about this kind of with a little more detail. So anyway, man, we're going to get into this document just like that. As always, you're rocking with the best thoughts of the week. Let's get it.
You're listening to Thoughts of the Week.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. What's popping? What's up? I'm gonna have to go back to my other intros, man, with the actual people, man. Then I gotta start getting some new intros for some more people. I like those better than those particular video intros that I just put out. I like the actual people, man. So we're gonna get back to that pretty soon. But in the meantime and in between time, let's take a look at this official document. Appreciate the heart. We're going to take a look at the documents. Like I said, I wanted to go a different route compared to a lot of people were just kind of talking about it. And I think there were some attorneys out there on whatever shows, if it's their own show or whatever, talking about it. But I figure I go at this topic from the angle of getting the actual documents that's out there compared to just kind of putting my thoughts and observations on it in this particular episode. All right. So this is a 79-page document. I think this is the documents that was the leading to, or maybe the arguments that led to Bill Cosby's release. So like I said, I'm going to go into it. We're going to read through it. I'm not going to read the whole thing, of course. It's 79 pages. I'm just going to kind of read some, kind of skip a few, read a little bit more. And like I said, it might be a part 2 Thursday and, wrap it up on Thursday with the same process of reading through some things. And after I get off the show, I'm going to read a little bit more. So if there's anything that I skipped over today, or if I do it Thursday, I don't know I'm going to do it yet, but I'm leaning towards doing a part 2 if it goes that route. Yes, indeed. There is a lot of talk out there. And yeah, like I said, I wanted to hit it from that angle of getting the actual information, the actual facts of it, instead of just, which is cool. Everybody is entitled to their own thoughts. I don't say opinions. I say your own thoughts. So I'm entitled to my own thoughts on things. Everybody else is. And or observations, but I wanted to hit it from this angle. Just get the actual documents out there. And once the show is over, I'm going to put the link in the description in case anybody wants to read it themselves and go over it if they feel so interested in doing so. All right. So, yeah, let's get it. Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, Middle District, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William Henry Cosby. This has been argued December 1st of 2020. I think I remember somebody speaking about that. It was argued in December. And I guess through a bunch of whatever they had to go through, then it led up to, I think this month or last month, of Cosby getting released. So, all right, this is Judge Wecht. I think that's his name. Like, that's how you pronounce it, I suppose. All right. So in 2005, Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce Castor learned that Andrea Constand had reported that William Cosby had sexually assaulted her in 2004 at his Cheltenham residence, along with his top duty prosecutor and experienced detectives. District Attorney Castor thoroughly investigated Constand's claim. In evaluating the likelihood of a successful prosecution of Cosby, the district attorney foresaw difficulties. The district attorney foresaw difficulties with Constand's credibility as a witness, based in part upon her decision not to file a complaint promptly. DA Castor further determined that a prosecution would be frustrated because there was no corroborating forensic evidence and because testimony from other potential claimants against Cosby likely was inadmissible under governing laws of evidence. So this kind of will give you, like, setting the stage right there. The collective weight of these considerations led DA Castor to conclude that unless Cosby confessed, there was insufficient credible and admissible evidence upon which any charge against Mr. Cosby related to the Constand incident could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So that right there, this very beginning, I say that's the first paragraph, kind of keys you in on the whole situation in a nutshell as to why, or kind of directs you towards that direction of why he got released. All right. You heard me? Yep, that's correct. Seemed extremely fishy. And like I said in the beginning, if there was, I looked at some videos, not really heavily, maybe 2-3 minutes of 1 or 2 videos here and there, and a couple of people, maybe I guess it must have been an attorney or so. They kind of, as two attorneys, one on, different channels, was mentioning that something seemed weird about it. But my thing is, if you thought something was weird about it, why didn't you reach out and tell them? Whether or not you felt they would have known, these attorneys that represented Cosby already would have known the situation and figured it out themselves or not, why didn't you bother to say, hey, look, it ain't, I'm not trying to say I'm agreeing with whatever they saying he did or didn't do, but that when we read such and such, that don't seem right. Why did nobody reach out and tell them? That was my thing. If you think you seen something, mention it to them. Your attorneys talking to other attorneys. So, but like I said, maybe and probably I'm leaning towards that. I'm pretty sure that those representing Cosby knew something was foul and was already trying to get things in place to take care of the situation. And they just might have ran into a lot of roadblocks, in order for them, I put them in quotes, to keep Cosby in jail. So let's move on real quick. Seeking some measure of justice, quote, seeking, quote, some measure of justice for Constant, DA Castor decided that the Commonwealth would decline. Now here it is, would decline to prosecute Cosby for the incident involving Constant, thereby allowing Cosby to be forced to testify in a subsequent civil action under penalty of perjury without the benefits of a Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. So he decided that they would decline to prosecute as long as he wouldn't mind speaking on the situation. All right. And then that, in a nutshell, should already tell you that somebody, mainly the DA, didn't own up to his end of the bargain, if you will. That as long as Cosby talked, I guess I'm guessing in his civil action, if he spoke there, then he wouldn't be charged criminally. But I think he ended up getting charged criminally. All right. We might go into that a little bit later here. All right. So where are we at here? All right. Unable to invoke any right not to testify in the civil proceedings, Cosby relied upon the district attorney's declination and proceeded to provide 4 sworn depositions. Like I just said, during those depositions, Cosby made several incriminating statements. And like I stated, in order for him not to be prosecuted on the criminal side, if I'm not mistaken, the DA wanted to make that deal with him that, hey, you won't be charged or prosecuted as long as you speak in this civil proceeding. All right. So DA Castor's successors did not feel bound by his decision. So there were some people who end up taking over for this DA, or I don't know if the DA left or whatever the situation was where this DA was no longer in service. Some other successors of this DA looked at it and said, well, I'm a different DA. I don't gotta go by those rules. So the DA Castor's successors did not feel bound by his decision and decided to prosecute Cosby, notwithstanding that prior undertaking. The fruits of Cosby's reliance upon DA Castor's decision, Cosby's sworn inculpatory testimony, were then used by DA Castor's successors against Cosby at Cosby's criminal trial. Correct. We granted allowance of appeal to determine whether DA Castor's decision not to prosecute Cosby in exchange for his testimony must be enforced against the Commonwealth. And so right there it says a lot. All right. Hold on here. Hold on. All right. Great setup. I would love to see you do these as a show. A lot of people do that with their podcasts now. The only example coming to mind is Joe Rogan. I actually like this intro. Thank you. Idea, take this to the streets and give an episode on the street. I thought about that too. And it may put a face to your audience. Okay. Okay, let me get back into the story. All right, let's get back. All right. So that in a nutshell is to tell you a lot right there. All right. So basically he was, which is something I heard already, but I wanted to get the actual documents and read it for myself. And I'm doing this in real time. So I didn't read it. I did this on purpose to not read it and just to read it live with y'all so y'all can follow along with me and get the information the same way I'm getting it. All right. Shout out to Jason Black, man. He's the one to put this link out on his show. And like I said, I'm going to do the same thing so you guys can go through it. Those who are interested, it's 79 pages. So yeah, he was the DA at that time, decided to work out some deal with Cosby. He said, look, I won't prosecute you on a criminal tip, but if you give me this little testimony here on the civil tip, I'm gonna prosecute you on the criminal side. And so then some other people took over for this DA Castor, and the people who took over, these prosecutors, was like, nah, I'm not feeling that. We're gonna use this information against him. You're gonna take his testimony and put him in jail. Not understanding, or maybe they didn't understand, maybe they didn't care. That might be the case. Or maybe they didn't know or didn't realize you'd be breaking the law if you did that. Just because you're a new person, that deal has to still be granted, right? So that's where we at so far on that. Now, let's go down a little bit further here. Factual and procedural history. In the fall of 2002, Constant, a Canadian-born former professional basketball player, was employed as the director of basketball operations at Temple University. It was in this capacity that Constant first met Cosby. That's 2002, who had close ties to and was heavily, says notes, testimony, habeas corpus hearing, 2/2/2016. As we discuss in more detail below, at Cosby's trial, the trial court permitted the Commonwealth to call 5 witnesses who testified. There was something about those 5 witnesses too, I think, that was not right as well, or a little off, that Cosby had engaged in similar sexual abusive patterns with each of them. We granted allowance of appeal here as well to consider the admissibility of that prior bad act evidence pursuant to Pennsylvania RE 404B. However, because our decision on the Castor declination issue disposes of this appeal, we do not address the Rule 404B claim. All right, let me see here. Let's go back. It was in this capacity that Constant first met Cosby, who had close ties to and was heavily involved with the university. That fall, she, along with a few other Temple administrators, showed Cosby around the universities. She, along with a few other Temple administrators, showed Cosby around the university's then recently renovated basketball facilities. Over the course of several telephone conversations concerning the renovations, Cosby and Constant developed a personal relationship. Soon after this relationship began, Cosby invited Constant to his Cheltenham residence. When Constant arrived, Cosby greeted her, escorted her to her room, and left her alone to eat dinner and drink wine. Cosby later returned sat next to Constant on the couch and placed his hand on her thigh. Constant was not bothered by Cosby's advance, even though it was the first time that any physical contact had occurred between the two. Shortly thereafter, Constant left the residence. Doesn't say much detail about that. He put his hand on her thigh. She wasn't bothered by it, even though it was the first time that any physical contact had occurred between the two. A short time after, Constant left the residence. As the personal nature of the relationship progressed, Cosby eventually met Constant's mother and sister, both of whom attended one of Cosby's comedy performances. Soon thereafter, Cosby invited Constant to return to his home for dinner. Constant arrived at the residence and again ate alone in the same room in which she had eaten during her first visit. When Constant finished eating, Cosby approached and sat next to her on the couch. At first, the two discussed Constant's desire to work as a sports broadcaster, but Cosby soon attempted physical contact. Cosby reached over to Constant and attempted to unbutton her pants. When she leaned forward to prevent him from doing so, Cosby immediately ceased his efforts. Constant believed that her actions had communicated to Cosby clearly that she did not want to engage in a physical relationship with him. She expected, that no further incidents like this one would occur. Toward the end of 2003, Cosby invited Constant to meet at the Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut. Constant accepted the invitation and once at the casino, dined with Cosby and a casino employee, Tom Cantone. After dinner, Cantone walked Constant to her hotel room. Cosby called Constant and asked her to meet him for dessert in his room. Constant agreed. When she arrived, she sat on the edge of Cosby's bed as the two discussed their customary topics, Temple athletics and sports broadcasting. Cosby then reclined on the bed next to Constant. Eventually, he drifted off to sleep. After remaining in Cosby's room for a few minutes, Constant left and returned to her own room. Constant interpreted Cosby's actions as another sexual overture. Notwithstanding these unwelcome advances, Constant still regarded Cosby as a mentor, remained grateful for his career, advice, and assistance, and did not feel physically threatened or intimidated. All right, let's go to the next one here. Excuse me, real quick. Okay, where we at? Okay, so now eventually, Constant decided to leave her job at Temple and return to Canada to work as a masseuse. In January 2004, Constant went to Cosby's Cheltenham residence, to discuss that decision. As on her previous visits to Cosby's home, Constant entered through the kitchen door. On this occasion, however, Constant noticed that Cosby already had placed a glass of water and a glass of wine on the kitchen table. While she sat at the table with Cosby and discussed her future, Constant initially chose not to sample the wine because she had not yet eaten and did not want to consume alcohol on an empty stomach. At Cosby's insistence, however, Constant began to drink. At one point, Constant rose to use the restroom. When she returned, Cosby was standing next to the kitchen table with 3 blue pills in his hand. He reached out and offered the pills to Constant, telling her that the pills were her friends and that they would, quote, help take the edge off. All right. Constant took the pills from Cosby and swallowed them. Constant took the pills from Cosby and swallowed them. The two then sat back down and resumed their discussion of Constant's planned departure from Temple. Constant soon began experiencing double vision. Her mouth became dry and she slurred her speech. Although Constant could not immediately identify the source of her sudden difficulties, she knew that something was wrong. Cosby tried to reassure her. He told her that she had to relax. When Constant attempted to stand up, she needed Cosby's assistance to steady herself. Cosby guided her to a sofa in another room so that she could lie down. Constant felt weak and was unable to talk. She started slipping out of consciousness. Moments later, Constant came to suddenly. Moments later. All right, finding Cosby sitting behind her on the sofa. She remained unable to move or speak. With Constant physically incapable of stopping Cosby or of telling him to stop. Cosby began fondling her breasts and penetrating her vagina with his fingers. Cosby then, if before I read any further, if any of you feel offended by this, the speech or the words in here, you might want to turn it off. I understand, but I'm going to read the word for word. If you got kids and you feel like you don't want them checking this out, have your kids go in another room, all right? So let's move on. Cosby then took Constance's hands. If there's some super offensive words here, I'm going to just kind of use some alternative words, all right? And you should get what's being said. Cosby then took Constance's hand and used it to masturbate himself. At some point, Constance lost consciousness. When Constance eventually awakened on Cosby's couch in the early morning hours, she discovered her pants were unzipped and that her bra was raised and out of place. Constance got up, adjusted her clothing, and prepared to leave the residence. She found Cosby standing in a doorway, wearing a robe and slippers. Cosby told Constance that there was a muffin and a cup of tea on a table for her. She took a sip of the tea, broke off a piece of the muffin, and left. After the January 2004 incident, Constance and Cosby continued to talk over the telephone about issues involving Temple University athletics. In March of that year, Cosby invited Constance to dinner at a Philadelphia restaurant. She accepted the invitation in hopes of confronting Cosby about the January episode, but the two did not discuss that matter during dinner. Afterward, Cosby invited Constance to his residence. She agreed. Once there, Constance attempted to broach the subject by asking Cosby to identify the pills that he had provided to her. She then tried to ask him why he took advantage of her when she was under the influence of those pills. Cosby was evasive and would not respond directly. Realizing that Cosby was not going to answer her questions, Constance got up and left. She did not report to the authorities what Cosby had done to her. A few months later, Constance moved back to her native Canada. She spoke with Cosby over the telephone, mostly about an upcoming Toronto performance that he had scheduled. Cosby invited Constance and her family to the show, which especially excited Constance's mother, who had attended two of Cosby's other performances and who brought a gift for Cosby to the show. Constance kept the January 2004 incident to herself for nearly a year until one night in January 2005 when she bolted awake crying and decided to call her mother for advice. Initially, Constance's mother could not talk because she was en route to work, but she returned Constance's call immediately upon arrival. During the call, Constance told her mother that Cosby had sexually assaulted her approximately 1 year earlier. Together, the two decided that the best course of action was to contact the Durham Regional Police Department in Ontario, Canada, and to attempt to retain legal counsel in the United States. All right, stand by a second. Hold on. Didn't he have a lot more going on in his life? Yeah. That's what I was thinking. A lot of advances between all those times. Okay, let me see here. That night, Constance filed a police report with the Durham Regional Police Department. Shortly thereafter, Constance called Cosby, but he did not answer his phone. When Cosby returned the call the next day, both Constance and her mother were on the line. Constance brought up the January 2004 incident and asked Cosby to identify the 3 blue pills that he had given to her that night. Cosby apologized vaguely. As to the pills, Cosby feigned ignorance, promising Constance that He would check the label on the prescription bottle from which they came and relay that information to her. Frustrated, Constant left the call, but her mother remained on the line and continued to speak with Cosby. All right, excuse me for a second here. All right, where are we at here? The mother continued talking, right? But the mother remained on the line and continued to speak with Cosby. Cosby assured Constant's mother that he did not have sexual intercourse with Constant while she was incapacitated. Neither Constant nor her mother informed Cosby that Constant had filed a police report accusing him of sexual assault. Constant later telephoned Cosby again, and unbeknownst to Cosby, recorded the conversation with a tape recorder that she had purchased. During this conversation, Cosby offered to continue assisting Constant if she still desired to work in sports broadcasting. He also indicated that he would pay for Constant to continue her education. Cosby asked Constant to meet him in person to discuss these matters further and told her that he would have someone contact her to set up the meeting. As with the previous call, Cosby again refused to identify the pills that he had provided to Constant on the night of the alleged assault. So there's been a lot of meetings, but all this stuff that took place, there's constant phone calls, constant meetings at hotels, at events, so on and so forth, at least even after, for a year after the sexual incident. Yes, yeah, hold on for a second here. I got this dog wanting to come in and out. Just give me a second or two. All right, so like I said, there's been a lot of back and forth between the two. I'll say over a course of a year, maybe 2 years, but definitely from what I'm remembering, what I read, even after the incident, a year after, they're still linking up, hooking up. She's filed some police reports, and they're still constantly meeting before and after. All right. Within days of filing a report, Constant received 2 telephone messages from people associated with Cosby. The first message was from one of Cosby's assistants calling on Cosby's behalf to invite Constant on and her mother to Cosby's upcoming performance in Miami, Florida. So this time is an assistant of some sort of Cosby inviting Constant and her mother. This is like a year later now, to go to a Miami performance. Constant called the representative back and recorded the call. The representative asked for certain details about Constant and her mother so that he could book flights and hotel rooms for them. Constant declined the offer and did not provide the requested information. All right. Constant then received a message from one of Cosby's attorneys who stated that he was calling to discuss the creation of a trust that Cosby wanted to set up in order to provide financial assistance for Constant's education. Constant never returned the attorney's call. In the meantime, the Durham Regional Police Department referred Constant's police report to the Philadelphia Police Department, which in turn referred it to the Cheltenham Police Department in Montgomery County, where Cosby's residence was located. The case was assigned to Sergeant Richard Schaefer, who worked in tandem with the Montgomery County Detective Bureau and the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office to investigate Constant's allegation. Okay. So now, Sergeant Schaefer spoke with Constant by telephone on January 19, 2005. According to Sergeant Schaefer, Constant seemed nervous throughout this brief initial interview. Thereafter, Constant traveled from Canada to Cheltenham to meet with the investigating team in person. because this was Constance's first time meeting with law enforcement personnel. She felt nervous and uncomfortable while discussing with them the intimate nature of her allegations. That was the 19th. Okay, on January 24th, 2005, then Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce Castor. All right, I read you at the beginning about DA Castor, issued a press release informing the public that Cosby was under investigation for sexual assault. Sergeant Schaefer and other law enforcement officials interviewed Cosby in New York City, utilizing a written question and answer format. Cosby was accompanied by his attorneys, Walter M. Phillips, Esquire, and John P. Schmidt, Esquire. Cosby reported that Constance had come to his home at least 3 times during their social and romantic relationship. Cosby claimed that on the night in question, Constance came to his house complaining of an inability to sleep. Cosby stated that he told Constance that when he travels, he takes Benadryl. Now, I'm going to talk on that in a second. And antihistamine, which immediately makes him drowsy. According to Cosby, he then handed Constance 1.5 Benadryl pills, but did not tell her what they were. Now, this was something I heard kind of a while back that was not being told too much or rarely at all, that the pills that he actually gave her were Benadryl pills. And people were saying it was these Quaaludes and stuff like that. But let's read on. I'm just going to leave it at that. According to Cosby, he then handed Constance 1.5 Benadryl pills, but did not tell her what they were. Let me see here. Hearing the stories in this format is, I'm not even sure how to say it. I am looking for the loopholes. I guess we all know it is harder to give an account of certain situation as time. Yeah. Now, are you referring to the loopholes as to why he was released from jail? I think the first few paragraphs, if you're talking about that, the first few paragraphs pretty much was the reason why they had to let him go, because I think there was a legal thing. That's why the Supreme Court ordered all of that, for him to be released, because I think if I'm not mistaken, is by law, and it has to be honored if you make a deal. And however he made a deal, I think the DA even mentioned it on TV, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, however he mentioned it, he made an agreement, and no one stood by the agreement. And so that's the loophole, I guess, if you want to consider that the loophole, that nobody honored that agreement that's you're supposed to be doing. And so what can essentially, and who knows, this might have happened already. You might have people who are lesser, and I'm just looking at it from, I'm not saying the criminal, what crime they actually did, but you can have DAs and attorneys and people make deals with folks and don't honor it. And you might have situations where people who are not as rich as Bill Cosby, they go in jail. They could have done something, or maybe they didn't do something, but they still being accused of something. And the DA makes a deal, but nobody honors it. So it could be a lot of people in jail like that now or years ago. Who knows? Somebody could have said one thing, and so that would make the person say, well, okay, I'll speak on whatever case they were on, because you're giving me this deal. And it was just to provoke them or make them tell what happened, and they didn't honor the deal. So I think that's in a nutshell, that's what happened. The DA told Cosby, look, if you talk, I won't take any criminal charges on you, but I need you to speak in this civil case. And civil cases mainly to try to get some money. All right. And so he spoke, but nobody kept up with the agreement. And then you got this new DAs. I guess the original DA leaves. These new DAs go and look at the file again and go, oh, he made these testimonies. We're going to use this against him to get him arrested, when they wasn't supposed to do that. on the criminal charge. So I think that's how he got out. Well, I know that's how he got out. All right. According to Cosby, he then handed, the Benadryl. And Cosby recalled that once Constant ingested the pills, they kissed and touched each other on the couch. Cosby admitted that he touched Constant's breasts and vagina, but he insisted that she neither resisted nor told him to stop. Additionally, Cosby told the investigators that he never removed his clothing and that Constant did not touch any part of his body under his clothes. Cosby denied having sexual intercourse with Constant and disclaimed any intent to do so that night. In fact, Cosby claimed that the two never had sexual intercourse on any occasion. Cosby admitted that he told Constant and her mother that he would write down the name of the pills and provide them that information. But he acknowledged that he never actually did so. After the interview, and without being asked to do so, Cosby provided the police with pills, which laboratory testing confirmed to be Benadryl. So they did a test on those pills, and it turned out to be Benadryl, and not the Quaaludes that probably you've been hearing about for who knows how long. It was Benadryl. At least they tested the pills that he provided, and it turned out the pills were Benadryl. I'll say it like that. Not Quaaludes, because I've been hearing Quaaludes for years. In February 2005, then District Attorney Castor reviewed Constant's interviews and Cosby's written answers in order to assess the viability of a prosecution of Cosby. The fact that Constant had failed to promptly file a complaint against Cosby troubled the district attorney. All right. In DA Castor's view, such a delay diminished the reliability of any recollections and undermined the investigators' efforts to collect forensic evidence. That would have been good if she did go right away, because then they could have probably tested her, find out what was in her system, and would have verified if those were Benadryls as well in some form or fashion. Moreover, DA Castor identified a number of inconsistencies in Constant's various statements to investigators. So this DA is saying, she had inconsistent statements when she talked to investigators. After Cosby provided his written answers, police officers searched his shelter. And by the way, you give written answers, and you go back later changing your story, they're going to refer back to those written answers. Okay. Or recorded, audio or video. After Cosby provided his written answers, police officers searched his Cheltenham residence and found no evidence that, in their view, could be used to confirm or corroborate Constant's allegations. Okay. So we're on that one right now. Okay. As time passes. Yes. After Cosby, we got that. Couldn't confirm or corroborate. Following the search of Cosby's home, Constant was interviewed by police again. DA Castor noted that there were inconsistencies in that interview, which further impaired Constant's credibility in his eyes. He also learned that before she contacted the police in Canada, Constant had contacted civil attorneys in Philadelphia, likely for the purpose of pursuing financial compensation in a lawsuit against Cosby. All right. Additionally, according to DA Castor, Constant's behavior in the years since the alleged assault complicated any effort to secure a conviction against Cosby, as evidenced by the number of telephone calls that she recorded. Constant continued to talk with Cosby on the phone, and she also continued to meet with him in person after the incident. DA Castor found these recurring interactions between a complainant and an alleged perpetrator to be atypical. D.A. Castor also reasoned that the recordings likely were illegal and included discussions that could be interpreted as attempts by Constant and her mother to get Cosby to pay Constant so that she would not contact the authorities. The totality of these circumstances ultimately led D.A. Castor to conclude that there was insufficient credible and admissible evidence upon which any charge against Cosby related to the Constant incident could be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Having determined that a criminal trial likely could not be won, D.A. Castor thought about an alternative course of action that could place Constant on a path to some form of justice. He decided that a civil lawsuit for money damages was her best option. To aid Constant in that pursuit, as the sovereign, the district attorney decided that his office would not prosecute Cosby, believing that his decision ultimately would then set off the chain of events that he thought, as a minister of justice, would gain some justice for Andrea Constant. By removing the threat of a criminal prosecution, D.A. Castor reasoned Cosby would no longer be able, in a civil lawsuit, to invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination for fear that his statements could later be used against him by the Commonwealth. Mr. Castor would later testify that this was his intent. Intent is a big word when it comes to the courts, by the way. The Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution states that a person may not be compelled to give evidence against themselves. I'm going to read that again. The Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution states that a person may not be compelled, keyword on compelled, to give evidence against themselves. So you can't subpoena somebody and make them testify that they did something illegal or evidence that would lead someone to conclude they did something illegal on the threat of, if you don't answer, you'll be subject to sanctions because you're under subpoena. So the way you remove that from a witness is, if you want to, and what I did in this case is I made the decision as the sovereign that Mr. Cosby would not be prosecuted no matter what. As a matter of law, that then made it so that he could not take the Fifth Amendment ever as a matter of law. So I have heard banter in the courtroom and in the press the term agreement, but everybody has used the word wrong. I told Cosby's attorney at the time, Walter Phillips, that I had decided that because of defects in the case, that the case could not be won, and that I was going to make a public statement, which I think he did, that we were not going to charge Cosby. So I think he did that publicly as well. So that's publicly on record through video. I told him that I was making it as the sovereign Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and in my legal opinion, that meant that Mr. Cosby would not be allowed to take the Fifth Amendment in the subsequent civil suit that Andrea Constant's lawyers had told us they wanted to bring. All right. Let me move on here. Excuse me. Attorney Phillips agreed with me that was, what's his name again? Let me go back. Walter. There you go. Walter Phillips. Attorney Phillips agreed with me that is, in fact, the law of Pennsylvania and of the United States, and agreed that if Cosby was subpoenaed, he would be required to testify. But those two things were not connected one to the other. Mr. Cosby was not getting prosecuted at all ever, as far as I was concerned. I think that's the Castor speaking on that, saying that. And my belief was that as the Commonwealth and the representative of the sovereign, that I had the power to make such a statement, and that by doing so, as a matter of law, Mr. Cosby would be unable to assert the Fifth Amendment in a civil deposition. Attorney Phillips, a lawyer of vastly more experience even than me, and I had 20 years on the job by that point, agreed with my legal assessment. So he's saying that Cosby's attorney, Walter Phillips, had more experience than him, Castor, even though Castor had 20 years on the job himself. And he's saying that Walter Phillips even agreed with Castor's legal assessment. And he said that he would communicate that to the lawyers who were representing Mr. Cosby in the pending civil suit. All right. Recalling this thought process at the time, the former district attorney further emphasized that it was absolutely his intent to remove for all time the possibility of prosecution, because the ability to take the Fifth Amendment is also for all time removed. Consistent with discussion with Attorney Phillips. By the way, just to note, this document is pretty clean cut and easy to read, and a lot of other documents that would be similar to this. So it's easy to understand. I'm surprised they made it so pretty simple with not a lot of legal jargon and stuff like that. They made it pretty layman, if you will. All right. So let's continue on. Consistent with his discussion with Attorney Phillips, DA Castor issued another press release, this time informing the public that he had decided not to prosecute Cosby. I'm going to read that again. Consistent with his discussion with Attorney Phillips, that's Walter Phillips, District Attorney Castor issued another press release, this time informing the public that he had decided not to prosecute Cosby. The press release stated in full, Montgomery County District Attorney Bruce L. Castor Jr. has announced that a joint investigation by his and the Cheltenham Township Police Department into allegations against actor and comic Bill Cosby is concluded. Cosby maintains a residence in Cheltenham Township, Montgomery County. A 31-year-old female, a former employee of the athletic department of Temple University, complained to detective that Cosby touched her inappropriately during a visit to his home in January 2004. The woman reported the allegation to police in her native Canada on January 13, 2005. Canadian authorities, in turn, referred the complaint to Philadelphia police. Philadelphia forwarded the complaint to the Cheltenham police. The district attorney's office became involved at the request of the Cheltenham chief of police, John Norris. Everyone involved in this matter cooperated with investigators, including the complainant and Mr. Cosby. The level of cooperation has helped the investigation proceed smoothly and efficiently. The district attorney commends all parties for their assistance. The district attorney has reviewed the statements of the parties involved, those of all witnesses who might have firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident, including family, friends, and co-workers of the complainant and professional acquaintances and employees of Mr. Cosby. Detectives searched for Mr. Cosby's Cheltenham home, or detectives searched Mr. Cosby's Cheltenham home for potential evidence. Investigate, and that's like a year later. You can get rid of stuff. Investigators further provided District Attorney Castor with phone records and other items that might have evidentiary value. Lastly, the district attorney reviewed statements from other persons claiming that Mr. Cosby behaved inappropriately with them on prior occasions. Lastly, the district attorney reviewed statements from other persons, claiming that Mr. Cosby behaved inappropriately with them on prior occasions. However, the detectives could find no instance in Mr. Cosby's past where anyone complained to law enforcement of conduct, which would constitute a criminal offense. After reviewing the above and consulting with county and Cheltenham detectives, the district attorney finds insufficient, credible, and admissible evidence exists upon which any charge against Mr. Cosby could be sustained beyond a reasonable doubt. In making this finding, the district attorney has analyzed the facts in relation to the elements of any applicable offenses, including whether Mr. Cosby possessed the requisite criminal intent. In addition, District Attorney Castor applied the rules of evidence governing whether or not evidence is admissible. Evidence may be admissible if it is too remote in time to be considered legally relevant, or if it was illegally obtained pursuant to Pennsylvania law. After this analysis, the district attorney concludes that a conviction under the circumstances of this case would be unattainable. As such, District Attorney Castor declines to authorize the filing of criminal charges in connection with this matter. Let me see here real quick. Okay. Because a civil action with a much lower standard for proof is possible. So in civil action, civil suits, you have to provide a lower standard of proof, I guess, compared to criminal. The district attorney renders no opinion concerning the credibility of any party involved so as to not contribute to publicity and taint prospective jurors. The district attorney does not intend to expound publicly on the details of his decision for fear that his opinions and analysis might be given undue weight by jurors in any contemplated civil action. District Attorney Castor cautions all parties to this matter that he will reconsider this decision should the need arise. Much exists in this investigation that could be used by others to portray persons on both sides of the issue in a less than flattering light. The district attorney encourages the parties to resolve their dispute from this point forward with a minimum of rhetoric. All right. So I'm about 57 minutes in, close to an hour. I'm going to read a little bit more, and then maybe we'll get a part two going. All right. And I'm going to probably read a little bit more on the back end, and then maybe on a part two, I'll bring up some parts of it, or just start off where I left off. All right. This we'll see. Press release 2/17/205, 2005. The DA Castor did not communicate to Constant or her counsel his decision to permanently forego prosecuting Cosby. He did not communicate that to her. In fact, Constant did not learn of the decision until a reporter appeared at one of her civil attorney's offices later that evening, with the resolution of her allegations removed from the criminal courts. Constant turned to the civil realm. On March 8th, 2015, less than 1 month after the district attorney's press release, Constant filed a lawsuit against Cosby in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. During discovery in that lawsuit, Cosby sat for 4 depositions. Cosby's attorney for the civil proceedings, John Smith, had learned about the non-prosecution decision from Cosby's criminal counsel, Walter Phillips. So Phillips passed on the, if I'm not mistaken what I'm reading here, Walter Phillips passed on to John Smith, who was representing in the civil proceedings for Cosby, about the situation, of the deal that was made, the agreement, if you will, or the decision that Castor made not to prosecute. So he passed that off to John Smith. From the perspective of Cosby's attorneys, the district attorney's decision legally deprived Cosby of any right or ability to invoke the Fifth Amendment. Accordingly, not once during the 4 depositions did Cosby invoke the Fifth Amendment or even mention it. All right. During one deposition, Attorney Smith advised Cosby not to answer certain questions pertaining to Constant, but he did not specifically invoke the Fifth Amendment, nor did Cosby claim the protections of the Fifth Amendment when asked about other alleged victims of his sexual abuse, presumably because he believed that he no longer retained that privilege. In fact, no one involved with either side of the civil suit indicated on the record a belief that Cosby could be prosecuted in the future. DA Castor's decision was not included in any written stipulations, nor was it reduced to writing. All right. So I'm going to leave it at that. I read a lot, and that should tell you a lot. Pretty much, if you want the condensed version, I already read you everything that would give you the condensed version, the real information, and not just people's talking points or assumptions. I pretty much read you the condensed reason why he was released. And I'm just reading, I think I'm going to do a part 2 on it. And maybe start off here with this. This is page 13 and starting page 14. So I'll start with page 14. I may read some. I think I'm going to read a little bit of it, but I'll start page 14. We're going to rock it Thursday, I guess. All right. And maybe just conclude everything there. Whether I finish it or not, just going to conclude everything. But I wanted to, for myself and for other people to see for themselves and hear, for those who are listening on the listening platforms, to hear the actual wording, the actual words, and the actual timeline of events that was stated. All right. As opposed to just hearing people kind of spreading or kind of exaggerating some things about what was said or done or what was given. And so far, I haven't heard the word quaaludes in this document. And I heard that was being passed around a whole lot for a few years, excuse me. So I haven't heard the word quaaludes at all in this document. It might be mentioned later, it might not. All right. But you pretty much got a nutshell of why he was released. All right. And then probably, again, there might be some more details to that. All right. So, yeah, I'm going to end it like that. We are an hour, 2 minutes in. That's good enough time. Again, I appreciate y'all for checking it out. For those who are going to be checking out the replay, for those who are going to be listening to the broadcast, I'm going to put the link for the video if you just want to watch the video and see the document. For the listening and the video, I'm going to put the link in the description so y'all can click on the link and it take you right to this document here. You can read it on your own. In case other people are saying things, you can get the facts. You can get them straight on the facts of the matter. All right. Thank you, Kiani, for your comments. I think that was you who gave me the heart. I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, it was. Okay. Thank you for the heart, by the way. I didn't know I could see that or check that on here using StreamYard, but I can see. All right. That's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up. Again, I appreciate everybody who's going to be checking out the replay. Thank you for everybody watching live. And again, I am now able to go on Twitch. So for all you Twitchers out there, y'all can check me out on there as well. So, yeah, that's where we at right now. All right. As always, if you want to get in contact with me, the website is norwoodventuresunlimited.com. And with that being said, you are rocking with the best. This is Thoughts of the Week. I'm out. All right. We'll continue part 2 on Thursday. I might come on again before then for something else, but definitely Thursday, we're going to continue part 2. All right. I'm out of here. Peace.